Have you ever stood in the pouring rain, duffel bag in hand, watching the only home you knew fade into the distance because your own mother deemed you a worthless mistake? At 18, that's exactly what happened to me, kicked out with nothing but $47 in my pocket and a heart shattered into pieces. But what I did next, nobody saw it coming. Stick around, because this isn't just a story of survival. It's one of the most unexpected revenge plots you'll ever hear. Hi, I'm Sophia, and welcome back to Sophia's Stories. Growing up in a sleepy suburb of Dayton, Ohio, my world revolved around a single, unyielding truth. Love was a transaction, and I was always short on payment. My name's Sophia Reynolds, and if you picture the quintessential 80s latchkey kid, that's me. Blonde ponytail swinging as I pedaled my rusty bike home from school to an empty house, microwave dinners as my best friends. My dad, Tom, was a factory line worker with calloused hands and a laugh that could fill a room. But he split when I was 7, leaving behind alimony checks and a trail of my mom's unresolved fury. Mom, her name was Linda, was the storm at the center of it all. A part-time receptionist at a dental office, she had these piercing blue eyes that could switch from warm to ice in a heartbeat. She remarried twice after Dad, each husband a carbon copy of disappointment. Gary, the alcoholic salesman who vanished after 2 years. Then Mike, the accountant whose idea of family bonding was yelling at the TV during football games. I was their only kid, the accidental one born too soon after their shotgun wedding. "You're the reason it all went wrong," she'd slur after too many glasses of cheap Merlot on Friday nights, her words slicing deeper than any knife. I spent my elementary years trying to glue the pieces back together. I'd bake lopsided chocolate chip cookies for her birthdays, using recipes torn from the back of flour bags, hoping the scent would summon the mom from old photo albums, the one smiling in sundresses at county fairs. But more often, I'd find her slumped on the floral couch, cigarette dangling, muttering about how my straight-A report cards were just luck and my piano recitals embarrassing noise. Teachers called me mature beyond my years, but really, I was just learning to shrink myself small enough to avoid the thunder. By middle school, the neglect turned sharper. Friends like Emily and Sarah would invite me to sleepovers, but I'd lie and say Mom needed me home for family night, which was code for dodging another lecture on how I was draining her youth. Puberty hit like a freight train, braces, awkward crushes on boys like Jake from homeroom, and suddenly, Mom's criticisms zeroed in on my body, my clothes, my everything. "You'll end up just like me if you don't smarten up," she'd say, eyeing my thrift store jeans. I internalized it all, vowing to be the daughter who fixed her. High school brought AP classes, volleyball tryouts I made only to quit after a sprained ankle because quitters don't deserve trophies, and a part-time job at the local Dairy Queen slinging blizzards to save for college, anything to prove I wasn't the mistake she whispered I was. Looking back from my 40s, those years planted seeds of doubt that would choke me for decades. But they also whispered the first hints of rebellion, late-night library sessions devouring self-help books like The Road Less Traveled, scribbling affirmations in the margins of my algebra notebook. "You're enough," I'd write, even as her voice echoed louder. Little did I know, that foundation was cracking, and at 18, it would all come tumbling down in a moment that redefined everything. It was June 1996, the summer after my high school graduation. The air in Ohio hung thick with humidity, cicadas screaming like they knew what was coming. I just turned 18 2 weeks earlier. No cake, no fanfare, just a card from Dad with $20 tucked inside and a promise to visit that never materialized. Mom and Mike were in the thick of their 3rd year of marriage, a toxic tango of slammed doors and silent treatments. I'd been tiptoeing around them, working double shifts at Dairy Queen to fund my community college dreams, majoring in business because that's practical, not some artsy nonsense. The blow-up started over something trivial, a forgotten chore. I'd come home from a 10-hour shift, feet throbbing in my non-slip sneakers, only to find the kitchen sink piled with dishes from their date-night takeout. Exhausted, I collapsed on my twin bed in the attic room we'd converted from storage, peeling wallpaper, a single bulb swinging like a noose. Mom stormed up the creaky stairs, Mike trailing like a shadow, his face flushed from beer. "Sophia, what the hell is this?" she shrieked, waving a sponge like a weapon. I mumbled an apology, promising to handle it in the morning, but that was the spark. It ignited everything: the divorce grudges, the failed husbands, the life she felt I'd stolen. "You're just like your father," she spat, her voice rising to a venomous crescendo. "Lazy, ungrateful, a worthless mistake from the day you were born. I should have given you up, saved us both the trouble." The words landed like punches. I froze, tears blurring the sight of her contorted face, Mike shifting uncomfortably but saying nothing. She didn't stop there. Grabbing a trash bag from under the sink, she hurled my clothes into it: jeans, sweaters, the stuffed bear from Grandma I'd clung to since kindergarten. "Get out! Now, you're 18, you're an adult. Figure it out, because you're not my problem anymore." Rain pounded the roof like applause for her cruelty. I begged God, how I begged, whispering through sobs about college, about loving her despite it all. But she turned away, arms crossed, Mike muttering, "Let her go, Linda. It'll toughen her up." With $47 from tips crumpled in my fist, I zipped the bag and stumbled down the stairs, the front door slamming behind me like a final judgment. The porch light flickered off, plunging me into darkness. Neighbors' houses glowed warmly, but mine was a tomb. I walked 2 miles to Emily's, pounding on her door at midnight, collapsing into her arms with a story too raw to fully tell. That night, curled on her guest bed, I replayed it all. Was I really worthless? Had I earned this? Dawn broke gray and unforgiving, and with it came the first flicker of something fierce, not hate but resolve. Kicked out with nothing, I vowed silently. I'd prove her wrong, not for her, but for the girls shivering in the rain who deserved better. The months after that expulsion were a blur of survival that would make a lesser soul crumble. Emily's family took me in temporarily. Her mom, Karen, a soft-spoken nurse who baked cinnamon rolls and never pried too deep, but couches have a shelf life. By August, I was crashing in a dingy studio apartment above a laundromat in downtown Dayton, rent $350 a month scraped from waitressing gigs and odd jobs, cleaning houses for elderly widows, tutoring middle schoolers in math for $10 an hour. Community college started, but classes blurred into exhaustion. I'd nod off in lecture halls, waking to drool on my notebook, dreams haunted by Mom's voice. Money was a ghost. Ramen noodles stretched to meals, utility bills juggled like grenades. I dated sporadically, nothing serious. A barista named Chris who ghosted after 3 dates, a mechanic called Ryan who thought ambitious meant easy. Loneliness gnawed deepest at night when the radiator clanged like accusations. I'd call Dad collect, but his new wife, Brenda, screened calls with clipped "he's busy." Mom, radio silence. Once I drove by the old house, heart pounding, but the curtains stayed drawn. Rejection's echo chamber is brutal. I questioned every choice, every flaw, spiraling into a depression that had me staring at pill bottles, wondering if she was right. But rock bottom has a trapdoor. Fall 1997, during a brutal Ohio winter, I hit it. Evicted for late rent, backpack slung over one shoulder, trudging to a shelter that smelled of bleach and despair. There, amid bunk beds and whispered stories of harder falls, I met Teresa, a 50-something ex-con turned counselor, with laugh lines like road maps and eyes that saw through bullshit. Over lukewarm coffee in the shelter's rec room, she listened to my tale without pity, then slid a dog-eared copy of Think and Grow Rich across the table. "Napoleon Hill didn't bootstrap from a mansion, kid. What's your fire?" That book became my Bible. I devoured it, then branched to Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The Power of Now. Anything promising agency over ashes. By spring, I'd clawed into a better job, administrative assistant at a small marketing firm, $12 an hour but steady. Nights, I enrolled in online courses, free ones from the library computer, learning graphic design, copywriting, the bones of business. It wasn't glamorous. I'd edit resumes till my eyes burned, network at free chamber events in ill-fitting blazers from Goodwill. But each small win, landing a freelance logo gig for $200, saving enough for a deposit on a 1-bedroom, chipped away at the worthless label. By my early 20s, the hustle paid off in bursts. A promotion to junior coordinator, a circle of work friends like Lisa, who dragged me to yoga classes where I learned to breathe through panic attacks. Dadding steadied too, a sweet guy named David, an engineer with kind hands, though we fizzled after a year when my walls proved too high. Still, those years taught me resilience's quiet math. Pain plus persistence equals possibility. And as I crossed into my late 20s, the unexpected pivot loomed, one that would catapult me from scraping by to standing tall. Nobody expected this from the girl kicked out in the rain. At 28, I quit my safe corporate job to launch my own consulting firm. Call it Sophia Strategies, a one-woman operation born in my kitchenette, armed with a second-hand laptop and a Rolodex of contacts from years of schmoozing. The spark. A client from the marketing firm, a bakery owner named Margaret, who'd confided over coffee about her crumbling books. "I need someone who gets the grind," she'd said. I volunteered a free audit, turned her red ink black in 3 months, and just like that, word spread. It was terrifying. Nights calculating cash flow on napkins, cold calls that ended in hang-ups, imposter syndrome whispering mom's old script. But I leaned into the fire Teresa ignited. I specialized in small business turnarounds, branding for mom-and-pop shops, digital marketing for tradespeople overlooked by big agencies. My edge, empathy. I'd sit with owners like widowed florist Helen, unraveling their ledgers while sharing snippets of my story, not for pity, but connection. "I've been where you are," I'd say, "scraping for every dime. We build from here." By 30, Sophia Strategies had 3 freelancers under me, an office and a co-working space overlooking the Miami River. Wait, how'd I get to Ohio's edge? A bold move. In 2005, chasing warmer leads, I relocated to Cincinnati, trading blizzards for humid summers and a network of ambitious women at events like WE Cincinnati. Revenue hit 6 figures that year, enough for a down payment on a cozy bungalow with a porch swing where I'd sip Chardonnay and journal victories. Career highs intertwined with personal ones. I reconnected with Dad sporadically, forgiving his absence in therapy sessions that cost $150 a pop but mended fractures. And love. Enter Mark, a 32-year-old architect met at a networking mixer, tall, with a dimpled smile and patience for my guarded heart. We married in a simple backyard ceremony at 33. No drama, just vows promising, no transactions, only truth. Motherhood came at 35, our daughter Ava, a whirlwind of curls and curiosity, who reminded me daily of the love I'd craved. Balancing board meetings with bedtime stories stretched me thin, but it fueled growth. I wrote an ebook, From Mistake to Mastermind, anonymized but raw, selling thousands on Amazon. Controversies crept in too, clients questioning my unconventional path, whispers of lucky breaks ignoring the 80-hour weeks. Yet each hurdle echoed that rainy night, proof I wasn't worthless but a force. Hitting my 30s felt like emerging from a cocoon, wings tentative but wide. Mark and I built a life in Cincinnati's quirky neighborhoods, farmers' markets on Sundays, date nights at indie theaters showing foreign films that made us debate till midnight. Ava's first steps at our Victorian home, her giggles echoing off hardwood floors, healed wounds I didn't know festered. But the past didn't vanish. It shadowed like a persistent fog. Family pressures amplified. Dad passed in 2012 from a sudden heart attack, leaving a void and a box of unsent letters apologizing for his distance. Reading them at 36, tears soaking the pages, I grieved not just him, but the father-daughter dances we never had. Mom, sporadic postcards arrived. Hope you're well, but pride kept us apart. My own therapy dove deep, EMDR sessions reliving that porch light flicking off, unpacking how her words wired me for perfectionism. "You're worthy of rest," my counselor, Dr. Ellis, would affirm, as I nodded, fighting the urge to schedule more billable hours. Career-wise, the 30s were a summit, keynoting at women's entrepreneurship conferences, partnering with nonprofits to mentor at-risk teens, girls like young me, eyes wide with unspoken hurt. One, a 17-year-old named Jordan, reminded me most. Kicked out for her sexuality, she interned at my firm, blooming into a social media whiz. Watching her thrive sparked my own reflections. Had I forgiven too soon or not at all? Mark and I navigated this in quiet talks by the fireplace. "Boundaries aren't walls," he'd say. "They're gardens." We traveled to Italy at 38, where pasta in Tuscany dissolved defenses, leading to Ava's brother, little Ethan, born when I was 39, a surprise that tested but enriched our chaos. Yet controversies simmered. Friends like Sarah, now a suburban soccer mom, envied my glamorous independence, quipping, Must be nice not needing family. It stung my success a bandage, not erasure. Dadding flashbacks haunted. Pre-mark flings where I'd bolt at vulnerability, fearing mistake labels. Self-discovery bloomed in yoga retreats and journaling marathons, unearthing joy in imperfection. By 40, I was Sophia too. CEO, mom, author, advocate, proof that roots, no matter how thorny, can yield roses. But the biggest echo, a letter from Mom in 2020, post-divorce from Mike, hinting at regret. Opening it felt like stepping back into rain. 2023 at 42, wait no, let's call it now, as I sit here recording this, 40 and counting the ways that night shaped my empire. The letter arrived on a crisp fall morning, envelope trembling in my hands. Sophia, I've been wrong, can we talk? Love, Mom. Love, the word mocked after years of its absence. Mark urged caution. Your terms, while Ava, 5, asked innocently, is Grandma the one from your sad stories? I nodded, throat tight. We met at a neutral cafe in Dayton, neutral ground like a UN summit. Mom, 68 now, looked frail, silver hair in a bun, hands veined like maps of regret. Over herbal tea, she unraveled. Her own childhood of abuse from a belt-wielding father, teen pregnancy with me as the trap, untreated depression masked as anger. I saw my failures in you, she whispered, tears carving channels in her makeup. Part of me softened. The girl who'd baked cookies yearned to hug. But the woman I'd forged. She demanded truth. You broke me, I said, voice steady. But I rebuilt stronger. Forgiveness isn't forgetting, it's freeing myself. We parted with tentative promises, monthly calls, holidays if it fit. It's messy, Christmases where her tipsy toasts great, but Ethan's laughter bridges gaps. Controversial? Absolutely. Some friends cheer the grace, others call it enabling. Why bother? Lisa texts. She doesn't deserve it. But here's my truth. Holding hate poisons the holder. In my 40s, with a firm grossing 7 figures, a marriage that weathers storms, and kids who know their treasures, I've chosen release. Not for her redemption, but mine. This reckoning ripples into everything. Mentoring with fiercer empathy, writing a second book on generational healing, even therapy for Mom, my gift, not obligation. The worthless mistake evolved into my origin story, fuel for TEDx talks and late-night mom confessions over wine. It's not tidy bows, it's scarred beauty. As I wrap this up, gazing out my office window at Cincinnati's twinkling skyline, a far cry from that rainy porch, I'm struck by the audacity of it all. Kicked out at 18, labeled worthless, I didn't just survive. I scripted a life of abundance that whispers to every listener, your worth isn't parents' property. It's yours to claim, brick by unexpected brick. What about you? Have you forgiven the unforgivable or drawn the line at self-preservation? Drop your stories below. I read everyone, and who knows? Your mistake might be the making of you. Thanks for joining Sophia's stories. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next chapter of real, raw life. Until then, remember, you're no mistake. You're a masterpiece in progress.